Well, Palestinians this morning have begun their hours-long trek back to the northern parts of Gaza. Reaction, meantime, is pouring in. Here's a live shot. This is happening right now in the backdrop of reaction to U.S. President Donald Trump saying he wants Egypt and Jordan to bring in more Palestinians from Gaza. Here's what he said.
I'd like Egypt to take people, and I'd like Jordan to take people. I mean, you're talking about probably 1.5 million people, and we just clean out that whole thing.
So it's difficult to hear because he was on a plane at the time, but the last part of that clip says he wants to clear out the whole area. Israel's finance minister called the plan, quote, an excellent idea, while officials from Jordan condemned it. This comes as thousands of Palestinians right now are returning north for the first time in more than a year. Michael Link, he's an associate professor at Western University. He's a former UN Special Rapporteur for the situation of human rights in the Palestinian territories. He is joining us this morning from London. Michael, great to have you with us this morning. Listen, before we get to the reaction to Donald Trump, I just want to play these live pictures for people of the thousands of families who are, forced south, now heading back north. It is incredible to see these pictures and just to wonder what their lives have been like in the last 500 days, people they've lost, what they've experienced. What do you see and think about when you look at these pictures?
Well, first of all, what they've gone through over the last 500 days, many of them have been displaced 4, 6, 10 times from the north of the Gaza Strip to the south. They've been directed to go to safe zones, which turned out not to be safe zones. They've experienced extreme suffering with respect to lack of food, lack of water, lack of sanitation, lack of housing, and virtually no access at all to health care or to what remains of hospitals in Gaza. And what they're returning to is going to be a flattened area. All of Gaza was bombed, but the heaviest bombing and the greatest physical destruction took place in the north of Gaza, in Gaza City and the large refugee camp of Jabalia.
And when they return, I know if we come back to studio, there's a picture in behind us, and this is the scene that they're going to return to. How do you begin to find where to stay, how to reset up your life again?
You're going to be resetting all of these tents, obviously, in North Gaza. You can tell the desperation of the people wanting to return back to where their homes were. They wanted to see what there was there, but they wanted to remain planted, I guess, in Gaza. So we're now going to have, for humanitarian organizations, I guess, the ability to try to bring in these 600 and 700 truckloads a day of humanitarian aid and ensure that is efficiently and fairly spread throughout Gaza. But in terms of reconstruction, we're talking somewhere between 35 to $40 billion and probably 15 to 20 years to reconstruct Gaza if there are no more wars.
We should tell people these are also live shots of people returning, and this shot will change from time to time. Michael, all this is happening on the human side, but on the political side, we know the U.S. has long voiced support for a two-state solution. That is not always welcome in the Middle East. What is the significance, then, of Trump floating this plan that could see millions of Palestinians displaced from their homes?
I think he just set off a political grenade in doing this. Look, first of all, the forced displacement of Palestinians, because that's what it would be if he's directing Egypt and Jordan to take in all or almost all of the Palestinians in Gaza. That would be clearly illegal. It's a clear violation of the Fourth Geneva Convention, which every country in the world has signed. It's a clear violation and a crime against humanity of the 1998 Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court. Second of all, it's a violation of international diplomacy. Back in June of 2024, the United Nations Security Council passed a resolution at the instigation of the United States, and it rejected forced displacement. It said, and I quote, any attempt at demographic or territorial change in the Gaza Strip, including any actions that reduce the territory of Gaza, are to be rejected. And thirdly, I think it's politically impossible. The Palestinians won't accept it. None of the countries in the Middle East will accept it, including Jordan and Egypt. These countries have a very long memory of what happened to the 1 million Palestinians who became refugees in 1948 and 1967 and who were never allowed to go back to Palestine.
You know, when I'm looking at the faces of these people who are walking, and I understand it's between a 7 and a 10-hour walk north, depending on or their final destination is. And those are the people whose lives would be affected by a big political move like this. Both Egypt and Jordan have warned welcoming Palestinian refugees could lead to Israel banning them from returning to Gaza. So then what does this mean for Trump's plan? And I'm also curious, Michael, why displacement is the solution and not asking those countries to put money towards rebuilding.
Well, I suppose the one issue would be who winds up paying for this. It will be the international community, doubtlessly, that's going to have to fund. The 35 to 45 or 50 billion dollars is going to take to reconstruct Gaza. Some countries will be looking at Israel and the United States, since it was Israel who conducted the war and the United States which backed the war, which caused the devastation in Gaza. Doubtlessly, people will be looking at the rich Arab Gulf states to do some of the funding, as well as perhaps assist with some of the interim governance of Gaza until the future of Gaza is determined. But I think it's fairly clear in the landscape of Middle East politics that there will be a push that the Palestinians are to rule themselves, and there can be no solution short-term or long-term with respect to Gaza without the active participation of the Palestinians. Now, what that means with respect to Hamas and the Palestinian Authority, we'll have to see. But scenes that we've been looking at in the last couple of days indicate that Hamas still retains a fair amount of military and political presence in Gaza, and there really can't be any solution without trying to figure out how you answer the question of Gaza and its the participation of Hamas and its role in the future.
Just watching these scenes of people carrying, most of what they left with more than a year ago back home. In this country, we can't imagine what it's like to be a refugee in your own nation, in your own land. One last thing, Michael, I want to ask you about before you go. Hours after Trump was inaugurated, so a week ago today, he said he might be involved in rebuilding Gaza, praising its, quote, phenomenal location with, quote, the best weather. What is President Trump's stake in Gaza's future?
Well, I don't think very much. I think when he was talking about wonderful weather and a great location, he's really talking about wanting to clear the debris that's there and build hotels for tourists or other kinds of, scenes that disregard the lives of the 2 million Palestinians who are there. If he's given any thought at all to Gaza and its future, it's mostly going to be influenced by the many policy hawks that surround on Israel, that surround Trump. And I'm not sure anything that he said so far aligns with either established American policy on the Middle East, and particularly on Gaza, or aligns with what the international consensus is on a two-state solution, because virtually every statement on a two-state solution includes Palestinian rule over Gaza, which is where a third of the Palestinians who would live in a future Palestinian state now reside. Any remarks he's made don't indicate American commitment to the rebuilding of Gaza for the benefit of the Palestinians who live there.
We will continue to watch that. And of course, here in Your Morning, we'll continue to bring you these live shots of people returning to northern Gaza, the first few steps of many in a literal and figurative journey back home. Michael Link, former UN Special Rapporteur for the situation of human rights in the Palestinian territories. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me, Anne-Marie.
If you liked that video, make sure to subscribe to the Your Morning YouTube feed, where you can find all kinds of new content posted every weekday morning.